I can see the chat, so okay, thank you. I like the thumbs up confirmation. I can see the chat, so if you have questions throughout, just let me know in the chat and I will be able to answer those. But today we're going to talk about, whoopsies. Okay, we're good. Today we're going to talk about the annual meeting, and that's coming up here pretty soon. So I just want to make sure everybody's got a good idea of what needs to happen there. But first, I want to thank you all for coming to our annual conference. If you did, it was really successful. I had a lot of fun seeing all of your faces. And I know that my colleagues feel the same. It's always really great to see the people that we're talking to all the time and get to answer questions in person rather than over the phone or over email, and kind of get to know you all on a more personal level. So I really appreciate those of you who came and heard from some of our great speakers. I sat in on a lot of the sessions where I wasn't presenting, and they were really had great information and were really interesting. So I just want to start it off with that. But now I'll get into today's topic. First, let's start with what happens at an annual meeting. So an annual meeting is one of the most important functions of township government. It's where the electors get to exercise their authority. It's unlike anything else in Minnesota state government. The electors really, truly get a voice, and it's kind of the root of grassroots government, and it's the closest thing that we still have to grassroots government. They approve the levy, they set key directions for the year. And remember, this is not a board meeting. Board meetings are different. This meeting is for the residents of the town. And sometimes board members may be the only ones who show up to the annual meeting. I know that is the case in some towns, and that's okay. But the board members who come, they participate as though they are any other town resident, and they can't exercise board authority at those meetings. So it's important to remember that it is ultimately different than a board meeting, even if it is just the board there. But hopefully it's not. Hopefully your town is more active than that. But my goal for today is practical. So it's what happens before a board meeting to ensure it runs smoothly. What are the required or optional steps during the meeting itself? And then I'll talk about what happens to close out the meeting or continue the meeting if you want to do that. So first I'll start with before the meeting. So I have been deep into my annual Hallmark movie kick. So that is kind of the theme of today's images, get us in the winter spirit. But before the annual meeting, you need to prep well before that second Tuesday in March. Most problems at the annual meeting trace back to preparation issues. So we're going to talk about that first. So first you want to have the Board of Audit meeting. The board determines at the Board of Audit meeting the annual budget, basically, for the township meeting. So the board will determine a date to meet as the Board of Audit sometime after December 31st, and no later than a week before the annual meeting to examine and audit the town's accounts. This can be at a regular meeting, or it can be scheduled outside of a regular meeting. If it's not on that regular meeting schedule, then it must be noticed as though it were a special meeting, which means 5 days posted notice of the meeting's time, place, and purpose. But at the Board of Audit meeting, the clerk provides financial records, claims, and fiscal information, and then the treasurer provides a full account of money received and dispersed along with the vouchers. Often the clerk and treasurer will meet together beforehand and kind of compare notes and make sure everything is squared away. But then at the Board of Audit meeting, the board reviews the books, the bank statements, and supporting documentation to ensure that everything is matching up. Townships that have a combined clerk or treasurer position must also have an outside audit. It depends on how much your total revenue is, on how often you have to have that audit. They just bumped that up to $1 million this year. So if you have more than $1 million, then you have to do it annually. And if you have less than that, then you do it every 5 years. But again, that's only for townships that have a combined clerk or treasurer position. If you don't, then you don't have to worry about that. The outcome of the Board of Audit meeting is the financial report. The report doesn't have to list every check written. It just summarizes the township's financial condition and includes estimates of what must be raised for the upcoming year and any recommendations that the board might have, so that when they're voting on the levy, people really understand what is necessary and why they should be contributing this money to the township. Ultimately, it becomes a foundation for the annual meeting. So it's a really important thing to have. All right, next is collecting information and developing a budget. You want to be able to have information to develop a levy recommendation to the township residents, even if it's just, again, the township officers who are attending the meeting. You want to make sure that you have records of why you want to make this decision, how much money should be set for the levy, and what that is going to look like. That should include prior year's expenditures and revenues, whether those will be the same in the following year, the current financial report that you just created at the Board of Audit meeting, anticipated increases in costs, what's going to cost more in the next year, or decreases potentially, but usually it's increases. Other departments' input, right? You want to consider what are our roads looking like? What is fire looking like, or other services if you have them? Take into account the clerk and treasurer's recommendations. They're the ones who are really close to these financial reports a lot of times. So make sure that you take their recommendations into account. And then what special projects do you have coming up? What big road work projects or improvements that you have and you want to take on in the next year? The board should prepare a proposed agenda for the annual meeting, excuse me. That agenda must include setting the levy. And it can include other topics for voter consideration. I'll talk about that a little later on. But you want to make sure that the agenda is set and it includes setting the levy at a time that makes sense, because you can't really move that agenda around as you can for regular board meetings. The agenda is set once it's set. So you want to make sure that you have it in the right order. The moderator's pay should also be set by the town board at a regular board meeting before the annual meeting at some point for this annual meeting. Next, you want to confirm the site and time for this meeting. Every town must hold their annual town meeting on the second Tuesday of March. That is statutory. You can't change the date of the annual meeting unless there is inclement weather. If the meeting must be canceled because of inclement weather, it is to be held the third Tuesday of March. If there's bad weather on the third Tuesday of March, which isn't unheard of in our lovely state, then the town must set another date within 30 days after that. The meeting location must be the site selected by the electors at the last annual meeting. If no site was designated at the last annual meeting, then the board can choose a location. But the location must be within the township or within 5 miles of the township borders, if that's not an option. The meeting has to begin at 9 a.m. unless voters previously approved a later time. A lot of times people want to hold it after the election. So if that's something that you're interested in, you want to make sure that you pay attention to that. Oh, I have a question in the chat. If the residents voted for a specific time last March, can it be changed by the Board of Supervisors for the March meeting? I believe the statute relies on the voters previously proving a later time. So I don't believe so. The time is set by the electors at the previous meeting. But I'd have to double check that statute. Maybe it says that unless the board changes it, but I don't think it does from the top of my head. You want to make sure that you are careful about election times. Unless you hold your elections in November, the town can't hold their annual meeting between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. on election days. So you want to pay attention to that too. All right, providing notice is important. I know this says Wednesday, December 21st on this little picture, but I couldn't change that. So ignore the date, but it's inviting Santa to your annual meeting. But you have to provide notice for the annual meeting. Notice is critical. People can't show up if they don't know what's happening. So the annual meeting must be held on the second Tuesday, of course. We already talked about that. But the township must publish at least 10 days notice in a qualified newspaper and include the date, time, and place of the meeting and those bad weather contingency dates that I talked about in the last slide. If the meeting is postponed due to weather beyond those dates, you have to give additional published notice. If bad weather prevents holding the meeting on the second or third Tuesday in March, then 10 days published notice of the later date must be given. And as part of the preparation, the clerk should request election judges to attend, because the statutes may assign them roles at the annual meeting. For example, if a township resident, their vote ability is challenged, the judges act in the case of a challenge at a general election. So you want to make sure that they are also present and have awareness of when and where this meeting is taking place. All right, next is the treasurer's statement and posting the financial report. So within 5 days prior to the meeting, the treasurer must file a written financial statement with the clerk. That includes the money received from the county and from all other resources, all money paid out as the town treasurer, and from whom, on what account, and when each item was received, when the town made each payment, in what amount, and the balance that they have on hand. At least 30 minutes before the meeting starts, the clerk must post that financial report at the meeting location and have copies available for any attendees at the meeting. All right, next is what happens during the meeting, conducting the annual town meeting. Election judges question in the chat, sorry. Election judges, is this for November townships too? Can you explain the role, as this has not been done in the past? So in order to vote at the town meeting, someone must be a resident or qualified to vote at a town meeting. So if a voter is challenged, the election judges act in the case as they would at a general election. So it's Minnesota Statute 365.57 is one reason why they would be there. I know there's others too, but that's the one that comes to mind. All right. Calling a meeting to order. So the town clerk calls a meeting to order at the set time. If no time is set by the electors, then the clerk must call a meeting to order within 1 hour of when the meeting convenes, which would be 9 a.m. unless the electors at the last annual meeting set a different time. The clerk is responsible for keeping full and accurate minutes of the meeting, including a complete text of every order, direction, and rule adopted at the meeting. If the clerk is absent, the deputy clerk steps in. If neither of those people are present, then the electors can choose someone to perform the clerk's duties at that meeting. And then selecting a moderator. So the electors then choose a moderator by majority vote. The moderator presides over the meeting. They enforce the orders and procedures. They declare the outcome of votes and also may vote on matters that are at the meeting. The supervisor or clerk may serve as a moderator, but if the clerk serves, a deputy clerk has to take the minutes. If there is no deputy clerk, again, the electors select someone to take the minutes. The moderator's pay, remember, was set before the regular board meeting. The annual meeting at that regular board meeting. Remember, this is a public meeting. Anyone can attend, but you have to make sure that only eligible voters are voting. So only eligible voters can make motions, second motions, vote, things like that. Next is the order of business. So the moderator must clearly state the order of business. Typically, they do that by reading that prepared agenda. It's important because certain actions, specifically levy decisions, cannot be taken out of that order. So it's important that you set that agenda, you're aware of what it is, and you follow it. And you have to read the financial report. The clerk reads the financial report prepared by the Board of Audit to ensure voters can hear the same information that the board is hearing before acting on any financial matters. That one's pretty simple. Transacting business. So what happens at the town meeting besides those things? Business is conducted in the order it's stated by the moderator and in the order that it is on the agenda. Some key points to remember are a simple majority of voters decide most questions. The moderator declares the results of each vote. And formal parliamentary procedures are not required unless you have adopted them. So you don't have to follow Robert's Rules of Order. There are certain procedures, as in which I'll get into in a little bit, but there are no formal procedures that you have to follow. Town officers who are eligible to vote can vote, but they cannot act in their official capacity. So this is not a board meeting. Supervisors can explain and answer questions, but they can't exercise board authority at the meeting. They'll have to wait for a regular meeting after the annual meeting to do that. A lot of common agenda items include reviewing prior annual meeting minutes and then setting the site and time for next year's annual meeting. Question in the chat, can you repeat what needs to be read for the financial report? Yes. So the clerk reads the financial report. It needs to have the money received from the county treasurer, from the county and from all other sources, the money paid out as the town treasurer, the items of the money received from, I'm getting tongue-tied. The money paid out as the town treasurer and the money received and from who, on what account and when each item was received, when the town made each payment and the amount, and the balance that they have on hand. And we have a list of these items too. Is there a report in CTAS that would have all this info? I presume so, but I am not familiar with CTAS. That's a question for Gussie to answer. The slide says minutes are reviewed. Please talk about when and how the minutes from the annual meeting are approved. So that's the first thing you should do before you set the time and site for the next annual meeting. So you'll review the minutes from the last meeting and then approve those as the electors. Does that make sense? Hopefully, yep. Okay. Next, okay, what common agenda items? Is that where we were? All right, common agenda items, reviewing prior meeting minutes, setting the site and time for next annual meeting, and then voting on the levy amounts by fund. A town can't act on a proposition to vote on tax out of order. So you want to make sure that you stick to the agenda so you're not doing that when you're voting on the levy. Voters approve the total dollar amount per fund, not specific line items or pending restrictions beyond what those statutes allow. So they aren't approving where to spend the money, they are just approving on the levy. If the voters wish to reconsider a motion, they must do so within 30 minutes of the original vote. That's the procedure I was talking about earlier. So you want to make sure as the clerk or whoever is taking the minutes that you're noting what time those votes were taken, so that if somebody wants to reconsider a motion, that they're doing so within 30 minutes of that vote. Remember, not every motion passed at the annual meeting is binding. Voter authority is really limited in what statutes allow. Most matters are assigned to the town board's discretion, and that doesn't change at the annual meeting. Some statutes require both permission from the electors and the board to participate in the decision. And many of those powers that require both the decision of the electors and the board are in 365.10, and that's where you can find those. One example is to fund recognition of service. So that statute says that the electors can set a certain amount of money for the board to spend to commemorate an event of historical significance or to recognize service efforts for township officers or for a community celebration. That's just one example. At the annual meeting, the votes are taken by voice, show of hands, or otherwise, unless the statute requires a ballot vote, which is really, really rare. One is for weed destruction, for example. That's in Minnesota Statute 366.015, and it has the language of what that would look like in that statute. So a good idea is to determine kind of what your voters want to do, or guess at what they would be interested in, what motions might be brought up, and then take a look at the statutes that follow that and what would be required. All right, after the annual meeting, how do we close it and or continue it? So to adjourn or continue the meeting, a motion is required. The electors can continue the meeting to another date and time. If they do, that date and time and place and purpose must be recorded in the minutes before recessing, or otherwise published notice is required. So sometimes townships will continue the meeting to make sure that they're setting the levy at a later date. And towns can make levy changes up to 5 working days after December 20th. However, you want to pay attention, because if the need to change a levy is after September 30th, you have to notify the county auditor, and those changes are really only allowed when new circumstances arise. So you want to be careful about that timing. And then finalizing the minutes. After the meeting, the minutes are put into final form. They must be signed by the clerk and the moderator. If the clerk served as the moderator, obviously they can't sign for both, so a supervisor would sign instead. The minutes will be filed in the clerk's office within 2 days after the meeting is done. The statutes don't say much about public access to the minutes, but best practice is to make the annual meeting minutes available just like any other board meeting minutes. And a copy should be presented to the board at the next regular meeting. The board can't change the minutes, but they can take a separate action related to what occurred at the annual meeting. Like if they were given that authority to have that town celebration and they want to act on that, for example. All right, and that's all. If you remember to prepare to prevent any problems, make sure that you have a list of the decisions that might be made, and keep accurate minutes. Then you will have a smooth annual meeting. Um, and that is all I have. Does anybody have any questions on the slideshow? Oh, stop sharing my screen. There. That's all I have. Lisa or Gussie, are you on and you want to take over with some new information?
I'm ready here if
Okay, go
you.
ahead.
Okay. So I have a couple of things. I'm going to piggyback on what you said, Maddie, as far as when we come to March 10th, which is our annual meeting, also our elections. I'm getting several questions now about what happens, if you have a supervisor, nobody to fill a supervisor seat. I'm just going to remind people that they need to, they can contact the Secretary of State's Office for Information, also the Matt attorneys, but there is an election guide for the March elections. And that is on the Secretary of State's website. It's been updated. It begins now with December, and today is the deadline date for actually publishing, filing for the 2026 township elections. And it's supposed to be in the paper. Today is the latest, and that would have your filing dates, which begin December 30th and go through January 13th. And I believe I mentioned this at the last Township Tuesday also. And that last date on January 13th, the clerk should be available from 1 to 5 at your town hall or wherever that you're going to be taking these filings. So and the election guide, I'm going to go ahead and put that in chat, that link for you. Like I said, this is updated. So this is the place to go. This is going to give you the things that you need. You have a question, that guide is day by day by day by day. So, and now I'm going to get into just one other item here. Paid leave Deputy Commissioner Evan Rowe was at the MAT annual conferences in St. Cloud this last week, and he had a lot of things to talk about. And I know you all are interested in that. It's on top of all of our minds right now. Workplace posters, remember those have got to be in place. The individual employee notices are also there. Um, and that's something you're going to need to get to each employee. They're going to have to initial that they have seen this information. And from the conference, something that I'd heard earlier on was that there was going to be help for employers, for small employers, when they lose an employee to sick leave or a family medical leave. So um, they would qualify as a they would have to qualify as a small employer under paid leave. They'd have cost already incurred, and funding is not guaranteed, according to Evan Rowe. Um, Benefits are up to $3,000 per leave or $6,000 per employer to hire temporary workers, to increase existing workers' pay, and to train workers to cover for an employee on leave. And what I'm going to do too, also on chat, I'm going to put the toolkit. You'll find in this toolkit there an awful lot of information here, good information, easy to understand. So anyway, I am going to be putting that out there for you also. I hope this is all helpful. Thanks, Maddie.
Thanks, Gussie. So in the chat, I just want to address a couple of questions. Is there an example of the agenda? No, I don't believe we have an example of the annual meeting agenda, but we do have kind of a checklist of everything I listed and everything I stated here on our website in our information library. It's under town meetings. It's document 6000. So you can take a look at that. Otherwise, I can email it to you. If you can't find it, that's fine. Just send me an email and I'll send that out to you. And then I heard that townships can have an annual meeting in March or November. So that's the township election, which is different than the township meeting. Oh, somebody already answered that for me. So thank you. Great. Other than that, that's all I have. Go enjoy some Hallmark movies because I will. And have a lovely Christmas and happy holidays, everybody. Have a good weekend. Bye.